Hello, business analyst. Today, we got something special for you. Real interview questions from Infosys client round with practical detailed answers. If you find this helpful, please give us a thumbs up. It means a lot. And if you can spare a minute to drop a comment about what you enjoyed in this session, that will be fantastic. And if you are coming for the first time, hit that subscribe button. Here at CareersTalk, we share valuable business analyst knowledge with all of you. So thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. Okay, so the very first question is, describe a scenario where a requirement seems feasible on paper but turned out to be impractical to implement. How do you handle this situation? It's a very tricky question if you are not worked on the ground. So let me just share my perspective. So I am working on a project to enhance our mobile banking app functionality. Now, in the initial stages of the project, during requirement analysis, the team came across a requirement from a stakeholder that seems straightforward. And the requirement is that allow customers to initiate fund transfer from saving account to fixed deposit through the mobile app. So this looks pretty simple, right? Uh, yeah, I mean, at first glance, this requirement seemed feasible and aligned with the app's capabilities. But soon, when I dig, I realized that implementing this feature involves several complexities. So I identified several challenges. The very first challenge is regulatory compliance. So in the project, regulation requires strict validation and documentation for fund transfer, especially to financial instruments like fixed deposit. Then we have issues with risk management. So transferring fund to fixed deposit could potentially be exploited for money laundering or fraud. So we have to ensure the strong authentication and risk management was very important. Now the third thing is account type differences. So saving accounts and the fixed deposits have different rules and terms. So the app needed to handle these small nuisances while processing the transfer. The next important point is the fixed deposit interest rate change frequently. So we have to ensure that the app display the accurate rates at the time of transfer that is required during the help of real-time integration. So to address the challenge, then I propose a couple of solutions. So what we have proposed, what I have proposed, the very first thing is enhance the authentication. And how we can do that? We can implement a multi-factor authentication for fund transfer to mitigate the fraud risk. Then the second step is we develop a comprehensive documentation process for fund transfer that satisfy the regulatory requirements for audit trails purpose. The next thing is the real-time data integration. So we have to integrate with the backend system to provide the real-time fixed deposit interest rate during the transfer process. And the last and the important thing is customer education. So we have to provide the clear instruction and notification to customers about the process and implication of transferring to the fixed deposit. Now, after careful consideration, the team, stakeholders, and the compliance officers collectively decided that while the requirement was valid, the implementation complexities outweighed the benefit. So the decision was made to defer the feature for the current release. Now, team communicated the decision to stakeholders, explaining the reasons, like these are the different reasons behind it. And they also emphasizes that the decision was taken to ensure the regulatory compliances, security, and a seamless customer experience. And what we have done one step more. We provide a alternative solution. So the team suggested offering an option for customer to initiate the fund transfer request through the app and complete the process at the physical branch. Now this approach aligns with the regulatory requirement and minimize the risk. So the team documented the entire process, including the challenges, decisions, and the alternative approaches. Now these lessons learned would serve as valuable insight for future projects in our program, which again consists of several projects. So now the project team took this experience as an opportunity to improve their requirement analysis process. They decided to involve compliance and risk expert earlier in the process to identify such challenges proactively. So while the specific requirement was not implemented, the project continued successfully with other enhancements and features that aligned with regulatory and the technical constraints. I hope you like this answer. Let's move forward. Okay, again, I think this is most common asked question, that what role do prototypes or mockups play in the requirement gathering process, and how do they contribute to effective communication with stakeholders? Now, if you are a business analyst, I am sure that you are definitely work with different prototypes and mockups, because we know that prototypes and mockups play a crucial, important role in the requirement gathering process. Now, interviewer often ask this question to assess your understanding of the practical aspect of the requirement gathering and your ability to effectively communicate with the stakeholders. So let me break down this question and provide you the step-by-step answer with examples. Now, the very first thing is, let's define. Now let's see that uh, someone is a new business analyst. So for them, let's define what is prototype and mockups in a very easy, simple layman term. So prototypes and mockups are nothing but the visual representation of a system or software interface that help stakeholder to visualize how the final product will look and function. Now, these representation can range from a simple sketches to interactive digital design. So it's up to you. Sometimes you just draw something on paper. That's also perfectly okay. Now, the second important thing is, what is the role of prototype in the requirement gathering? Now, prototypes serve as tangible example that bridge the gap between the abstract requirement and the actual solution. So they allow stakeholder to see and interact with a preliminary version of the system. It provides a clear understanding of the end product's functionality and the user experience. So now let's take a scenario. Let's consider a scenario where a bank is looking to develop a new mobile banking app. Now, during the requirement gathering, a prototype of the app interfaces can be created to showcase key features such as account balance display, fund transfer, and the bill payments. Now, stakeholders can visualize, they can assess how user friendly and intuitive this app will be in future. Now, what are the benefits of using prototypes as a in our project as a BA? There are many benefits. Let's talk about few of them. The very first, as we all discussing, is visual clarity. So prototype make it easier for stakeholder to grasp the system's look and feel. This is especially valuable when dealing with the complex financial transactions or investment portfolio management interfaces. What else is a benefit? Early feedback. So stakeholders can provide feedback on the prototype before significant development work has been begun. Now, this saves times, effort, and potential rework in later stages. Now, the one more advantage is misinterpretation. So sometimes we all know that we misinterpreted the requirement, right? So prototype minimize the miscommunication by providing a shared visual reference that all the stakeholders can refer to. What else? Other important advantage is visualization. Prototype transfer abstract requirement into tangible visual that enables the stakeholders to visualize the product in action. So that will definitely going to help in effective communication with the stakeholders. Stakeholders can interact with this prototype and they can identify the potential issues or improvement that might have been missed through the textual descriptions. So that is again one of the benefit. Then alignment. So prototype facilitate discussion between business analysts, designers, developers, stakeholders. So to ensure that everyone shared a common understanding, everyone is on the same page. Now the next step is continuous refinement. So prototype evolve based on feedback, requirements, and insight from the stakeholders. So they serve as a living document that transform throughout the requirement gathering process. And what else we can talk about over here? So the insight gained from prototype guide the creation of detailed requirement documentation in future. So it ensures that the final solution align with the stakeholder expectation. So for example, for a mortgage application process, for example, the prototype might reveal the need for an interactive calculator to estimate the monthly payment. Now this feature can then be explicitly documented in the requirement. The next step is addressing the complexities. So prototype can also be valuable when addressing the regulatory compliance, the security measures, and the data privacy concerns. So for example, if we are developing a financial planning tool, a prototype could demonstrate how the customer data is encrypted and protected. Now, this visual assurance helps stakeholders to understand the commitment to the data security. The next important point is the requirement gathering process involve iterations and refinement. So lot of iteration is going to happen. So prototypes are updated to reflect the changing requirements and to validate that those changes meet the stakeholder needs. So for example, suppose an insurance company aims to enhance its claim processing portal based on the feedback from the agents. So as the prototype evolve, it demonstrate how the claim interface accommodate the additional document uploads that will help to expedite the claim processing system, right? So if you have to conclude, if you have to summarize, the prototype and mockups serve as a powerful tools for requirement gathering. They help in effective communication with stakeholders by providing the visual clarity, promoting early feedback, and facilitate the alignment among the teams. So through prototype, stakeholders can validate that the solution meets their needs before significant development efforts are invested. So that's the answer for this question. Let's move on. Okay. Uh, can you give an example of a functional requirement that you have encountered in a previous project? How do you validate its correctness? And then few follow-up questions. Okay. So we all know that functional requirements are important, very essential in defining the specific functionalities and features that a system or a software must have to meet the need of its user. Now let me give you an example, or in fact, let me give you two examples, one from the banking and one from the retail domain. So if I talk about the banking, guys, most of my experience into banking, so that might be the reason that I normally take a lot of example from paper side domain. Okay, so in a let's say banking domain, I have a function requirement that in a banking application, there is a requirement to allow customer to transfer fund between their own accounts. Same example, within the same bank. So saving to current, something like that. So that was the requirement. Now, what is the validation process? The very first thing which we keep on doing is the requirement elicitation. So initially, I would gather the detailed requirement by conducting the interviews with the stakeholders, including the product managers, maybe some fellow business analysts and end user. So in this case, I would meet with the representative from the bank's retail banking division. That will be my first step. The next second thing is I will create the use case, right? So I will create a use case diagram and use case narrative to describe the step-by-step process of transferring fund between same accounts. Now, this would include details such as account selection, amount input, and the confirmation. These are the three simple steps. Now, next thing is same prototyping, which we have discussed in detail. So to ensure that the requirement align with the user expectation, I might create a clickable prototype or a wireframe of the user interface. Now, this allows stakeholders to visualize the system behavior and provide the feedback early in the development process. Next, I would also conduct a peer review of the functional requirements document and prototype with my fellow business analysts and subject matter experts within the banking domain to identify any gaps, ambiguities, or any other challenges. After this, once the software is developed, I would also perform the validation testing to ensure that the fund transfer functionality behave as specified in the requirement. Now, this include testing various scenarios such as transferring different amounts between different types of account and checking for error handling. The next important thing is UAT. Now, final validation steps involve UAT, where end users simulate real world scenarios. So they validate that the fund transfer features meet their needs and then they align with their expectation. So that is the process which I have explained about the banking domain. Now, similar kind of example I can also give you for a retail domain. So in a retail point of sale, we have that POS software, right? So let's say there is a requirement to support discount coupon applied to a specific item during the checkout. Now, again, the same process, requirement elicitation. So what I am going to do, similar to the banking example, I would gather the requirement by working closely with the stakeholders in retail industry, such as store manager and the retail business analyst who are well versed in that particular domain. Now, what again, same case, use case we are going to create. So I would create a use case and flowchart to describe how the discount coupon functionality should work during the checkout process. And that will definitely going to include the user interface design. The next step, prototyping. As in the banking example, I might create a prototype or a wireframe of the POS software with the discount coupon feature. Now that will allow the stakeholders to visualize and provide the feedback early. Then I will do the peer review. So a peer review with other business analysts and other retail domain experts help to identify different issues or maybe some potential edge cases, right? So that's again something which we can consider. Then the testing. So during the development phase, I would also validate the functionality by conducting the rigorous testing. So for instance, I would verify that the system correctly apply the discount, handle coupon expiration, and update the final transaction amount. Then again, the UAT will come. So retail employees would participate in UAT to ensure that the discount coupon feature meets their operational needs and does not disrupt the checkout process. So that is the answer. Now let's see the follow-up question. So what are the some common challenges which you have encountered when validating the functional requirement in both of these cases? So what are the common challenges normally? And again, it's again applies to all the projects. So you can jot it down few points. For example, incomplete requirement that require extensive clarification. Then we have the changing requirement due to evolving business needs. The third, which I can think of, is the it's balancing the stakeholder expectation with technical feasibility. So yes, business need this, but whether it's technical feasible or not, so there is always a yeah fight between those two teams. Now, other thing is we have to ensure that the system behave correctly under the various edge cases, right? That's again important. So that's again a challenge. And of course, handling the conflict requirement from different user groups is always a challenge. Okay, the next follow-up question is, how do you document and manage changes to the functional requirement during the project lifecycle? So I use a systematic change management process, which which have documenting the change requests with detailed descriptions. We assess the impact of change on a project scope, timeline, and resources. We prioritize the changes based on the business value and the urgency. We conduct the impact analysis to understand the ripple effects on the requirement, and gaining the approval from the project change control board, CCB, or the stakeholders before implementing the changes. That's again a, I would say, important step. And then update all the project documentation, including the requirement documents, design documents, test cases to reflect the approved changes. And of course, at the last, communicating the changes to the entire project team to ensure everyone is on the same page. I hope you like this answer. So hit like, Okay, yes. So we keep on getting a lot of requests. So before we move forward, if you're still here, please click that like button. And for the next week, I'm allowing all the subscribers who watch this whole session till the end to join our business analyst WhatsApp group. You don't have to do anything, just hit like and comment join in the comment section. So I will reply to all of you in the comment section only. So please avoid sending me any personal messages. I won't be able to respond. So sorry for that. Thank you. And now let's go to the next question. Okay, so when dealing with non-functional requirement, how do you balance conflicting needs such as performance and security? So balancing conflicting needs such as performance and security is a common challenge in all the projects, in all the domains of business analysts, believe me friends. And I'm just going to give an example from a airline domain. That's again a something which I think we are not used that kind of example, so I just want to share with you that example. So now let's see that with this example, that how we can tackle this kind of situation. So the very first step is to understand the priorities of different stakeholders. In airline domain, for example, the operation team may prioritize the performance to ensure the smooth flight operations and passenger experience. So while the security team may prioritize the data protection and passenger safety. So now these two are having the different priorities, right? Now we have to gather the requirement. Now collecting the non-functional requirement related to performance and security is again a challenge. So in the airline domain, performance requirements might include responses with respect to times for flight booking and check-in system. So the security requirements might include data encryption, authentication mechanism, and the compliance with the aviation regulation. Now, the next step is analyze the dependencies. So we have to identify the dependencies between the performance and the security requirement. So in IT software, for instance, encrypting and decrypting the data can impact the system performance. So we have to understand these dependencies. That is again very important for making the informed decision. The next step is risk assessment. So we have to conduct a risk assessment to evaluate the potential consequences of not meeting the performance or security requirement. So again, if security measures are compromised, it could lead to data breaches and passenger safety issues. So if performance degrade significantly, it might result in lost revenue due to poor user experience. Now what we can do about it, we can do the trade-off and prioritization, right? So we have to, and how we can do that, we have to engage with the stakeholders to prioritize these conflicting needs requirements. So in some cases it may be acceptable to trade off a bit of performance for enhance the security, or both ways, right? So for instance, an airline might offer more robust security protocols even if it slightly impact the speed of passenger check-in, so to ensure that the passenger data is protected. So that's a call which airline is going to take. Now the other thing is optimization. Performance optimization is again, so in case where performance is a primary concern, we can use, or we can employ various performance optimization technique. So this could involve caching, load balancing, and the code optimization to ensure that the system meets its performance goal while maintaining the acceptable security level. So in the airline domain, optimizing performance might involve using efficient routing algorithm, for flight scheduling, or to implement the faster baggage handling process at the airport without compromising the security measures such as baggage screening. So these are the things which we can do. What else we can do? So when security take precedence, we will invest in the security enhancement. Now, this may include adopting the strong encryption algorithms, implementing the multi-factor authentications, and conducting the regular security audits and penetration testing. After this, we have to implement the continuous monitoring and testing to ensure that both performance and the security requirements are met over the time. Now, this could include regular load testing for performance and vulnerability scanning for the security in the IT software. And of course, the compliance audit and the security drills in the airline domain. So all will going to work hand in hand. And in the last, we have the documentation. So we have to document all these decisions made regarding the balance between the performance and security, and we have to communicate these decisions clearly to the all relevant stakeholders. Now, this documentation ensures transparency and accountability. So balancing the conflict needs between the performance and security is a ongoing process, and the key is to maintain a dynamic approach that adapt to changing circumstances and the emerging threats. So that definitely going to require a regular collaboration with stakeholders, the risk assessment, and a strong understanding of the specific requirements of the domain. So I think I have covered in detail. This is a little challenging question, in fact, for me as well. And the example which I have provided is again something which we never heard on a regular basis, right? Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so can you explain the importance of maintaining the version control for the requirement documents? Okay, it may be again a tricky for a lot of business analysts if you're not know what is version control. So maintaining a version control for requirement document is again a critical important aspect of successful project management. So as a BA, let me tell you the importance of this practice, and let me share how I along with my team members manage the version control in my previous projects. So the very first thing is that documentation integrity. Now, how we can achieve that? So requirements documents serve as the foundation for any software development project. Now, these documents outline what the software should do, how it should function, and what the end user expect. Now, without version control, there is a risk of confusion due to multiple conflicting versions of the document. So, maintaining a control ensures that everyone is working from the same source of truth. That's the very first thing. Now, the second important thing is traceability. Now, traceability is again important for understanding how and why requirements evolve over time. So version control allow you to track changes. It provide a clear audit trail of who made what modification and when. So this traceability is again very invaluable for compliance, debugging, and decision making. The next important thing is collaboration. So software development is a collaborative effort. So it involves various stakeholders. There are developers, there are testers, there are designers, business analysts, product owner, project managers. So version control system, they provide a structured way for these teams to collaborate. So they allow concurrent editing of documents while preserving the original version. So it prevents a conflict. It helps to enable the effective teamwork. The next important thing is it's definitely going to help in risk mitigation. So changes in requirements are inevitable, right? Due to evolving business needs, or we will also discover issues during our development. So maintaining a version control ensures that you can revert to the previous version if necessary. Now, it's going to reduce the risk of implementing the incorrect or unwanted changes. And the next important point is efficiency. So in software development, time is often the key, right? So version control streamline the review and the approval process for requirement changes, so that make it easier to manage and prioritize the updates. Now this efficiency helps in meeting the project deadline and keeping the stakeholder informed. So this is the answer for the first part. How have you managed version control in your previous project? Okay. So in my previous project, I along with my team uh, use various version control strategies, different tools such as Git or SVN, or there are different version control systems, proprietary, specific to a lot of different projects and companies. So again, it's depend on the organization preferences. So let me give an example of how along with my teams manage the version control. So let's talk about Git based approach. So in one of the project, we use Git for version control for our requirement documents. So each requirement document was stored in Git repository, and we follow all these practices. Again, it's not, if you already work on Git, you know that, right? That we have something called branching. So we create branches for each specific uh, feature or any change, right? Now this allow us to isolate the changes related to a specific requirement and merge them back into the main branch when it's approved. Then we have something called commit messages, right? So we uh, encourage detailed commit messages explaining like why a change was made and any relevant context, anything with related to that change. So this definitely going to help in traceability. Now again, we have something called code review for documents. So just like code, we conduct peer reviews of requirement documents before merging them into the main branch. So this ensure quality and alignment with the project goal. Now, when we finalize a set of requirements for a milestone or a release, we tag the repository to create a snapshot of the documents at that point. So this made it easy to refer back to the specific version when it's needed. This is a one of the way that you can manage the version control. So let's say if you don't have this tool, then what you're going to do? There is something called documentation change control board. Normally we have CCB. Similarly, we have documentation change control board as well. So in another project, we established DCCB. So it composed of key stakeholders. They review and they approve requirement changes. Now the DCCB met regularly to discuss proposed changes and their impact on the project. Now, this centralized approach ensures that all the changes were thoroughly evaluated and documented. So this is again one of the way you can manage the version control. So there are many, like again, like we maintain a central repository for requirement documents accessible to all the team members. Now this repository include a clear folder structure, naming convention, and the access control to ensure that the document integrity and the version history is maintained. So if I have to conclude, maintaining a version control for requirement document is very important. It ensures the consistency, traceability, collaboration, and risk mitigation. And depending on your project needs, you along with your team can leverage various version controls or the practices in order to successfully manage the requirement throughout the software development lifecycle. So with this, let's move on to our next question. Okay, so describe a situation where you needed a requirement from a reluctant, where you needed requirement from a reluctant stakeholders. Okay. How do you build rapport? Again, this is again part of conflict management, and we have seen this kind of questions which has been asked again and again and again. So let me also give you one particular instance when that comes to my mind. So I was working for a insurance project. So what was happening that I was working on a project for a large insurance company, so which is implementing a new claim processing system. Now this reluctant stakeholder in this case was the head of the claims. So who had this concern about the project impact on the existing claim workflow and the job security of his team. So he was initially resistant to provide the necessary requirement. He's fearing that the automation might reduce the need for manual claim processing and it's going to affect his department size. So that's the situation. Now, how we are going to approach it? The very first thing which I have done is, of course, meeting. So I initiate a one-on-one meeting with those stakeholders to understand his concern better. So during this meeting, I actively listened to his worries without judgment. The word is active listening. So this allow him to vent his frustration and feel heard, which is often the very first step in building the rapport. So just go out there, talk to your client, customer, just go there. That's very important. Approach them. Now, what I also have done is that I demonstrate empathy by acknowledging his concerns and expressing the understanding that, yeah, your concerns are very valid concerns. I also emphasizes that my goal was not to automate his team out of a job, but to improve the efficiency and free up his team's time for more complex and value added tasks. Now, as a third step, I took the time to explain the benefit of the new system. For example, faster claim processing, reduce error, and improve customer satisfaction. So I provided the concrete examples from other insurance companies that had successfully implemented the similar systems. So I'll show them that these changes could lead to the better outcome for the company and its employees. Now, to gain his collaboration, I invited this head of claims to be the part of the requirement gathering process. I explained that his expertise was important in ensuring that the system would meet the needs of his team and the company as a whole. Now, this made him feel like an integral part of the project rather than an outsider. So I was open to compromises and adjustment in the project plan based on his input. Now, this demonstrates that his concerns were valued and we are willing to work together to find solutions that address them. Now, throughout the project, I provide regular updates on our progress and involve him in decision making process whenever possible. Now, this helped maintaining his engagement and ensures that his concerns were continuously addressed. So, what's the outcome? So, by taking all these steps, I was able to build rapport with these reluctant stakeholders, and he eventually become an active, part of our project. So he provide valuable insights and requirement that was very important, essential to the successful implementation of our new claim processing system. And again, his team saw the benefit of system and they also embraced the changes that results in the improved efficiency and their job satisfaction. So this experience taught me the importance of effective communication, empathy, and collaboration when we have to deal with this kind of reluctant stakeholders, especially in projects with a significant organizational impact like the one in this insurance example. Okay. Okay, so this is part one. And friends, if you have learned something new today, show us some love by hitting that like button. And if there is anything you don't like, drop us a comment with your suggestions for improvement. And of course, don't forget to share this with your fellow business analysts. So thanks for being here. All the best for your next interview. Bye, guys.